what about character? How important is that to you, even when you're recruiting, say, a star basketball recruit? Are you looking at things like character, or do you just care about their talent and their ability and their height?
That's a great question. You got to have enough Jimmys and Joes to get it done. I'm a good coach because I get really good players and I get them to play hard and to play them together and play unselfishly. But I do think the environment you're in has a long way to go to developing that character. If you got a team full of knuckleheads, your guys are going to play like knuckleheads. That's just the bottom line. But if you got a locker room where there is character, there's discipline, there's unselfishness, there's a greater understanding that when we are successful, you as an individual will benefit far more than if you as an individual are successful, but the team fails. If the team is successful, you're going to get the glory. If the team does not, then there won't be any glory, for any of us. So I think character is something that can be developed, it can be taught.
More, but let me play devil's advocate. You have
Sure.
the superstar coming in from a high school. He was a legend in his high school, and he comes to Auburn, and now it's like, hey, it's all about me. How do you get someone like that to actually buy into your philosophy and all of a sudden start gelling as a team?
Well, again, that's another great question. I recruit in such a way, I say, listen, and I learned this from Pat Summitt, the great legendary Hall of Fame coach at Tennessee. She never had to apologize to the Lady Vols for pushing them in the direction she pushed them in. Look, you signed up for this, girl. You knew what this was when you came in. If a high school star wants to come in here and he's worried about how many shots he's going to get, or if he's here to be a one and done, but it doesn't matter what the other guys are on the team do, then he's not welcome in his program. So if I make sure that they understand,
Honestly, like, you're not going to let him come to even if he's a star in high school?
yes, because all these kids are stars. They're all stars, but there's different level. Look, young people still want discipline. They do. They want to be led. They want to be coached. Now they want to be loved. The great coach Pat Dye from Auburn, our football coach, said, you can coach them as hard as you love them.
If you think about coaches that do seem a bit more authoritarian, do you think that that's a better style than being more vulnerable and just admitting head on that you don't have all the answers, or is there just different strokes for different folks?
I think it's, I worked for a great coach, Dr. Tom Davis at Boston College, Stanford, and Iowa. And I learned how to coach from him. I learned our system. So much of what we do is what he taught me. You want to pay me a compliment? Tell me my teams look like Tom Davis's teams. But Tom Davis and I are completely different people with completely different styles. And one of the pieces of advice that Tom said is, when you leave, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to do what we do because you understand it, you know it, you've experienced it. But do it your way. Do it with your own personality. Do it with you. That way it's authentic. So Popovich and Belichick, they're authentic. That's who they are. And there could be another coach that can be equally as effective. But if he's authentic and he's real in what he's doing, that he's not playing, he's not acting, he's not thinking about he's just being himself. And that should be good enough. That way it's going to be consistent.
So just hearing you talk, so inspiring. I'm going to go out on a limb and just hypothesize that players that come to you during the course of a year, 2, 4 years, whatever it is, it's a leadership development journey for them in a sense. How do they, during this journey, get more in touch with their own authentic leadership style like you talked about? I mean, what are some of the ways that they get in touch with that and discover who they are as people and as human beings?
Jeff, I think one thing that's very important is we've somehow created, and this may be counter to where you're coming from, but we've somehow created this thinking that the only way you can be great or successful is to lead. And I disagree with that. I don't believe that you can create, you can teach leadership, you can explain it, you can understand it, but you don't have to be a great leader to be great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's not about being a follower. It's just that I remember when I got to Tennessee, I had a young man named C.J. Watson. And they called him the Silent Storm. He played maybe 13 years in the NBA. I only had him for 1 year. And everybody complained about how quiet he was and the fact that he wasn't a great leader. And they were sending him like to leadership training school and things like that. And all he did was learn about what he wasn't, all the things he wasn't. And somehow he was made to feel that because he wasn't those things, he was less than. And I said, CJ, don't worry about it. I can't do anything on the basketball court you can do, but I can lead. You go be the best point guard in the SEC. You go play basketball. You go do what you're great at. Now be a great teammate and be a great playmaker. And yeah, sometimes you got to communicate more in offense and defense, but don't worry about being something that you're not. So I think that it's important that I get my guys to understand who they are, go to their strengths, stay away from their weaknesses, work on their weaknesses, but don't go to their weaknesses. Go to their strengths. Look, what are you good at? What are you good at? You can't be great at anything unless you're already good at it. Take what you're good at. Spend as much time on what you're good at, become great at it. If you take what you're not very good at and you spend that same amount of time, you're just going to become okay at it. You're never even going to be good at it. We should be working on our strengths. We should be recognizing our weaknesses. And that way we have a chance to be great.
How do you get people to actually leverage that empathy gene that they're born with and really take the time to listen to and appreciate someone else's point of view? And does that matter?
Well, I tell you what, your questions are a lot better than my answers. I can tell you, that's a great, great question. It does matter. We should respect each other's differences. I think part of it is even being Jewish, in the sense that we've been such a minority religion. There's been so much anti-Semitism in the world. You know, I was born in 1960. That was 15 years after they found 6 million dead Jews and 9 million dead people that were murdered by the government of Germany. Okay? The government of Germany murdered 9 million people. And if that doesn't open up your eyes to what's possible and what's capable, and so I grew up with that. And it's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. I grew up in the 60s and 70s in Boston and saw forced busing and saw racial tensions and just didn't understand why white and black couldn't get along. We're all brothers and sisters. I just couldn't understand it. And then as I studied the Bible more, I realized, wait a second, my Catholic friends were hating me because I was a Christ killer? No, Jesus was a Jew. He was born a Jew and he died a Jew. And that makes us brothers. Oh, by the way, Abraham, the father of all nations. And so for me, it's always trying to bring people together. And the way to do that is to respect each other's differences, to respect each other's way of thinking, to challenge each other. It's okay to disagree. And then we got to find a way to come to it in some sort of civilized way. And so I work on that every day. And so I think one of the things that helps make me a good coach is I do know how to bring people together from all kinds of different backgrounds to focus on the greater good.
And you promote that kind of discourse with your teams and sort of respect that diversity of opinion and actively get them to develop that empathy gene and really take in and hear what people are saying and build upon that. I mean, does that actually make a basketball team better?
Yeah, here's what I could translate that to. Be a great receiver. Like, be a great receiver. Look, not all of us deliver the message the right way or the same way. You think about what people argue, husband and wife could argue. It's usually because whoever is delivering the message may not be delivering it in such a nice way, but it's then the receiver's response to what's being said. And sometimes what's being said isn't so terrible, but it's sort of the way it's being said. So I tell my guys, look, don't go back and forth. If somebody says something to you, whether they're right or wrong, and whether they deliver it the right way or the wrong way, just take it for now. We'll figure it out later. But then if there's a response, and this response is negative, all of a sudden panic ensues on a team or in a relationship. I'm not saying back down. I'm not saying bend over. And I'm not saying that by being a good receiver, you're acknowledging that they're right. But now's not the time in the heat of the battle, in the heat of an argument, in the heat of a discussion. Be a good receiver, hear what they're saying, and move on.
And does that translate into more points and more wins in a basketball game?
It does, because I think you got to know who the opponent is. A lot of times, opponents could be right on your own team. It could be like cancer, and it's gonna spread. You got to treat it with chemo. You got to cut it out. And I ain't playing. I'm not having it. As soon as I see it, as soon as I see that cancer, man, we're treating it. We're on it. And guess what? The earlier you find that cancer, the earlier to treat it, the more you're gonna die of something else. But if you let that cancer gets to stage 1, stage 2, you don't even know about it, you're in trouble. I'm gonna find that cancer. We're not having that on our basketball team. We're not. We have to know who our opponent is. The opponent's the rest of the league. The opponent is not in this locker room.
Now, Coach Pearl, I heard a little funny story. I don't know if it's true or not, but did you once tell one of your players to guard the referee during a game at Kentucky?
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about that.
All right, so the only reason I'm gonna tell you the story is because if our fans ever see it happen again, they'll understand. So my first year at Tennessee, I don't even remember, God bless. But we go to Kentucky my first year, and we win at Rupp. That was the only time I've won at Rupp, I hate to tell you. And it was the first time I played there. Chris Lofton knocked down a bunch of threes and great win. Come back to the following year, and we don't fare so well. It's late in the game. We're down like 14, less than a minute. I call timeout, bring the team over. Well, the guys have no idea why I've called timeout. We're not going to win. There's no 14-point play. They start to quit. Now, I'm not very happy with the whistle. And sometimes we go to Kentucky, it's 5 versus 8. They're 5 players, you're 5 players, plus they're 3 officials. No, don't take that seriously. That was just being funny. And so I tell one of my players, I was really unhappy with one of our guys. I said, listen, we break this huddle. You go over and you guard that official right there. Not that guy, not that guy. You go guard that guy right there. And he's like, what? I said, shut up and go guard that referee when we break the huddle. So we break the huddle. Referee puts the ball in bounds. And my guy goes over there and he gets all up in the official's hands. Wait, referee blows the whistle, comes over to me, says, Coach Pro, would you mind telling me what's going on? I said, yes, sir. I said, to my high school coach, he always told me to put my best defensive player on the guy that was hurting me the most. Technical foul.